Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman, and I'm here with my friend and trusty producer back in the studio, back in Toronto, Max Kerman. Max.
Feels great to be back.
Feels good?
Yep.
We are also joined by our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, and in our second pod since she's returned from the West Coast with a new outlook on life. I feel like we got a lot of response on Twitter and in inboxes about people feeling like your outlook on life and your change, your new perspective.
It kind of reminded me of when like the Beatles went to India.
Yeah. Came back and made Sgt. Pepper?
Yeah.
Or was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
She's here.
No, they came back and made the White Album. That's what it was.
No.
They wrote a bunch of the White Album in India.
Was it? I thought it was Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah, no, they made Sgt. Pepper before they left.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you still feel changed, or have things come back to reverted back out to the way they used to be?
I still feel changed.
Okay.
I'm a different person.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, those
It's weird having Max here. Right
those
now.
are some powerful mountains that you saw out west. We want to thank host of the Heist, Matt Ellsworth, for coming on and filling in for you, Max. But I got to say, as always, we miss you, man.
Yeah.
You know what? I love listening to the pod, though. And, you know, you guys are so funny because you guys were trying to psychoanalyze me and, like, what my text meant. And, like, was he being actually cool? I was totally cool with it. I was actually looking forward to it because I think Unzi is really entertaining. You guys are really entertaining. You guys have amazing chemistry together. I think if I was throwing you in there with, like, a random person, I'd be like a little more worried. But you guys have been bantering for like over a decade.
With Unzi.
Oh,
yeah.
So I wasn't worried about that. But the other thing I'll add, though, is that it's actually really fun to just hear yourself being talked about.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually fun. Like, if the whole episode was just you guys pontificating on me, like, I would have been totally fine with that. Like, cause the first like 10 minutes were just like, Max this, Max does this, and Max maybe was thinking this, and Max is a great guy, and he's whatever. I was like, this is awesome. I never want to be on the pod anymore. Yeah. As long as you only talk
as
about
long as
me.
you're on it without being on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you jealous at all, though?
Not at all, which speaks, I think, to more about you and your disposition than me.
Why?
Because the fact that your instinct was like, oh, he'd be jealous. No, that's what you would do. Okay. I think you're more talking about yourself when you're projecting that onto me.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, because I wasn't jealous at all. I was just like, oh, I'm just glad we're getting a pod out this week. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're narcissistic in a different way, I guess. Like,
you know what? I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it.
It just manifests differently.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great hang, and we did miss you though. And leave it to Webby D, Mr. Dan Carruthers. We couldn't remember if we'd done one without you. I honestly, if I had to bet money,
I couldn't remember either. You guys were discussing it. And I was like, have I?
Yeah, I was like, if I had to bet my money, I would say we've never done one without Max. And then Webby D found 2 episodes we did without you.
I thought that there's been a couple.
what was the one? It was Scott Whalen.
Yeah, and then the one after it.
Oh, it's funny because
He must have been on tour or something, and they hadn't invented phones yet for Collins.
Well, I felt bad because one guy DM'd our Instagram account, and he's like, I've been saving that Scott Whalen one for a while. I'm such a big STP fan, I can't bring myself to listen yet.
No.
But I'm just like, oh, it's just him eating a grilled cheese for 10 minutes.
And it was kind of making fun of him, right?
Well, not that.
making fun of
It was making fun of the awkwardness of the interview, just how much we were like, how uncomfortable we felt trying to talk to him when he didn't really want to talk to us.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating on a different level than like this profound interview that some Stone Temple Pilots fan's going to save for later. You know, it's just like very uncomfortable, interesting interview.
And it happened at a weird point in his life, and obviously shortly after that he passed away. So it is a fascinating sort of, I think, time capsule. So if you do listen to it, just prepare yourself for not some in-depth sort of career retrospective.
Yeah, you don't really learn anything about him
Just
directly.
Just that he thought the grilled cheese.
Well,
from
don't ruin it.
Oh, it's my bad. No, okay, spoiler alert. Yeah, listen to it. Go back, episode number 10. Oh, we were babies then, guys.
Yeah.
Just we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
So lots going on in the news, and also just in our lives. What have you been up to? You went to Cirque du Soleil last night.
Yeah, it was really awesome. Have you guys ever been? I know you've been. You saw Love.
I've been to a couple. I saw Love, and I saw exactly where you saw this one. I think it was maybe they had in Toronto, maybe 3 years ago. I got tickets to that as well, like on one of those nights that you went, where like industry went.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody that I know was there.
Yeah.
It was almost annoying, to be honest. I brought my nieces and my mom, and I was just like, just keep your head down. I'm going to talk to my nieces and not talk to anybody else. It was good.
Is that how you played it?
Yep.
But I saw a photo of you on the red carpet.
Well, that's part of the duty. You got to go do that. And we had a funny joke. Full disclosure for our Kells fans out there. Often, if you see a funny caption in an IG story, we've talked about this before. I put it in a group with Greg Veerman, your brother, Mike, and Shane, and I say, "Give me some copy for this." And I used Mike's copy today.
Oh,
well,
today,
I
you didn't contribute.
Well, here's what I do. I don't start the brainstorm till I see what Mike has. Because Mike is a big like his brain is very fast and can spew them out. Usually he'll give like 5.
Yeah.
And then I'll see the 5 and I'll be like, if I can top it, I'll do one that I'll think is better than it.
Yeah.
If I can't, I'm just going to lay back and act like I didn't see it. Because then you get a lot of credit for not even contributing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And you don't want the rejection in case I go with Mike.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I love the twist of instead of going with that Tim and Nick are dressed up in these ridiculous outfits, it's that there's a job swap, which I thought was very funny. And
yeah, that was very funny.
It's hard to
Thanks.
top that.
So shouts to Mike Fearman on that Instagram.
My brother
account.
didn't even get in on that one. Actually, you had one the other day.
He's been traveling all day. He's going to LA.
He's been traveling nonstop. That
Yeah.
guy, honestly. Although he did babysit for us last Monday. It was my
And I
wedding
did
anniversary.
party with him last night.
You did.
Well, I mean party. I mean I had some drinks with him.
Wait, did he go? He didn't go to Cirque, did he?
No, I met up with him afterward.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, actually, Manager Ash had reached out about to see if we were interested in going to Cirque. And the thing is, I love Cirque. Like, I
Yeah.
really do enjoy it. And I was like, I said to Danica, I'm like, can we make this happen? And you quickly realize, like, in your circle of people that can come and like babysit a kid, it's just like there's no way we're gonna find a sitter in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so you just have to let the dream die, or one of us goes. And so I said, I was like, if you want to go, I'll stay at home and whatever. But we didn't go. But what did we miss out on? Is the show good? Is it
Really
give it
good.
Out of 10, come on, hit us.
I mean, I was sort of blown away by the amount of not only like athleticism and when it comes to the acrobatic shit, but also just like the production of it all. All the music is performed live, so it's like they've plucked these incredible musicians from seemingly all around the world. Like there was this woman who was a drummer, and she was on stage doing like drumming, and she was sort of walking around, but also she had a full rock kit and did the whole drum solo. And I hate drum solos, but this one kind of blew me away. Also, just like all the coordination involved in pulling off a show and how they managed to keep it so fresh. Like each scene has its own thing. So like there's a part where a bunch of confetti came down like it was snow, and then the snowstorm started to happen and it starts blowing out at the audience. So it was really immersive, and it really got me thinking about how I think Cirque du Soleil is actually underrated. I know it's been around for decades. I know it tours around the world. I know that name is I
think the brand is strong. Do you think people look at Cirque as like something as like kind of cheesy?
No, not that it's cheesy. I don't think people think of it as cheesy or less than good or anything. I just think it's so good that it's gotten to the point where it's underrated. It's like, when we come to appreciate LeBron James, we're like, or Steph Curry, where you're like, is he at the point where he's actually underrated because the expectation is so high and he just delivers year after year after year? I think that's where Cirque is at.
I think it's like at a Forrest Gump level, where it's kind of like what Mike's saying too. Forrest Gump almost seems cheesy, or Jerry Maguire or something like that, because it's so good. There's a lameness to it not being underground at all.
Oh, sure, yeah. I guess it's like really a populist sort of.
Yeah,
direction.
like I don't think people view it the way they look. Cats is a punchline. There's certain like Broadway shows that have run forever that are kind of like, go see Cats, whatever. And it's kind of, I don't think Cirque is in that realm. So I get what you're saying now about, you're saying that it's almost like it's good, everyone respects it, it's good, but I don't think people understand how truly great it is.
Well, here's the thing: because you see the show, you're blown away. You talk about it the next couple of days, and then you kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
But then when you go back, because I saw one in December and I loved it. It was at Scotiabank Arena. This one was in like the tent down by Ontario Place, and it just reminded me. I was like, oh my god! It's like, and if someone has to put on a show as part of my job, and I think there's enough moving parts going on in an Arkell show. It is a fraction of the amount of an Arkell show is a fraction of the amount of the work of a Cirque du Soleil, and like. And so for that in itself, I was blown away by it. And then it kind of just got me thinking about, like, what's overrated and underrated when it comes to, like, the degree of difficulty.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to just, like, live entertainment. And, and you could talk about stand-up comedy. You could talk about, like, a DJ at a music festival. You could talk, and just, like, where all those things, where you'd rank them. And I think Cirque du Soleil is at the top. And it's also one of those things, it's so good that, like enjoying it like sober is what you want to do, just to appreciate.
Probably high would be the best.
High would probably be pretty cool too.
Yeah, or shrooms.
Oh, that would probably freak you out. There's a lot of like weird
Microdose. Probably the perfect thing to do. But I think Cirque du Soleil is one of those things. It translates the worst to television.
Totally.
Yeah, I buy that. Yeah.
I was thinking about that because they had some video clips showing outside of the production. I would never put that on if it was like a Netflix special. I'd watch a Netflix documentary. I remember years ago, the 60 Minutes did a making of, or like the history of Cirque du Soleil, and it was fascinating. But just like throwing it on TV and just like watching a thing wouldn't do it for you. It's so three-dimensional, and like the performers are kind of flying over top of you. But I think what I'm kind of getting to is I still, this is sort of unrelated but kind of related, I still haven't heard one good argument for the DJ set. Like, and not to sound like an old man.
You're talking about like public-facing expressions of like creativity.
Yeah.
Like if you get on stage and entertain someone.
Yeah.
So it's like we know what someone with a guitar does. We know what somebody who makes films for people do.
Yeah.
Or are you talking about live entertainment in specific?
But no, you're onto it. What I'm
Okay.
getting at. Yeah.
And so it's like you can sort of see the artistry in all of these endeavors. You're still not sold on somebody spinning records.
Not even. I mean, spinning records. There's something to that.
Plugging into the iPod. I don't care.
Yeah, like the EDM thing, because I watched. And here's the thing, which is the frustrating part about it, is that in a perfect world, the amount of attention something gets should sort of align with the degree of difficulty and how impressive it is.
Sure.
I think maybe, maybe
Or even effort, maybe.
or effort. Yeah. But I was at Lollapalooza. And we played, and the EDM stage was packed from noon till 2 a.m. It was by far the most popular stage. I was like, this is a joke. Like, it was like literally, it was like Shaquille O'Neal was DJing, and he was just yelling into the microphone. And I just haven't heard a good argument yet, or maybe I.
Well, it's like here's my argument. It would be the equivalent to seeing a movie in the theater. It's like you're putting all this work into something that's distilled on like a chip pretty much now, and you hit a button, and then everyone has this communal experience. That's what the DJ thing is. It's, Kim Kardashian's coming to the club tonight. Oh my God, we're just gonna go to the club and we're gonna look at her. But it's about being with everyone.
It's about the loud sounds, probably being on drugs.
It's about dancing. You never get to listen to that music.
Knowing
with
that
the guy
some celebrity guy's up on stage.
He created it.
Yeah.
He's pumping us up. Steve Aoki's throwing a cake in your face, and we're all dancing together.
Okay, I agree with all that. Then I'd say it annoys me or it frustrates me that experience is sort of put in the same category of these other kinds of art form. When we talk about like public-facing creative entertainment, it's like that. Like, because I just think it should be a different. The name should be different. It shouldn't be like live. It is live entertainment, but it shouldn't be like a live show.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
I just wish it was just called something else. It was just like we're going just dancing or something like that. We're going dancing and celebrity watching, or we're taking drugs and dancing. Like it should just have a different moniker.
But it wouldn't.
And the fact that it lives at a music festival next to a bunch of other things, where it's like the degree of difficulty is actually significantly harder.
The more moving pieces,
Yeah.
you need a band to make these sounds.
Yeah.
The performance is sort of, it's an interesting thought. I guarantee you we're going to get some letters from some very angry dudes that are
No, and by the way, I
making
want
beats
the
right now.
argument. And I've heard that
Or
it's like,
ladies.
listen, the lighting show is really impressive. And I'm like, yo, fair enough.
And sometimes
Like,
they are doing stuff in the moment. Like I was just listening to Steve Aoki on a podcast, and he's tapping stuff.
Yeah.
Why do you laugh?
No. I was just listening to Steve Aoki at a rave. Like you just came from. Like,
No, he was on a pod, but he made it seem like he does stuff in the moment. Like it's not just plug it in. Maybe that's the big joke.
I do think it's less that in some ways. Like maybe like super technical people could tell you what he's doing with those knobs. But I think what you're saying is getting to the heart of the human experience. It's like I want to be in a place with a famous person that I can dance in with all of these people that are feeling the same thing I am. But to Max's point, I'm trying to think of an equivalent. Like let's say like Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book. And they were selling books at the local chapters. And then Malcolm Gladwell was going to be standing there, but he wasn't signing books and he wasn't doing a conversation. He was just standing there, and people were there buying his books. But they get to see him, and then they get to leave with the book.
That happens a lot.
But usually there's like, I'm going to sign a book, or we're going to do a Q&A.
Oh, he doesn't even sign it.
In this retelling of it. He doesn't have a public reading. He's just there. Like you said, Kim Kardashian's at a club. You get to go and be like, I was in the same room with this person.
Can you take a picture with him?
Not with them, but of him.
Okay. That's cool.
He doesn't interact. And to each person, they need to find out what they're getting out of the experience.
And by the way, this is coming from a guy who actually at this point in my life likes to go see like a DJ at a club more than a live band.
Yeah.
So I'm not like degrading it. I'm just saying it should be put in a different
I think
category.
live band is the most thing I'm consistently disappointed with when I go see
Sure.
it.
And that's why when you see something good, I think it's impressive.
Yeah. Like you guys are very, very good. I'm not just kissing your ass.
Thanks.
But your show is actually better than just listening without going to a live show.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a good, like, what would be the comparison of, it's like somebody who like wrote a book, like a Gladwell.
Yeah, they already did the work. So say you created the song, like your
It's going to see a movie at TIFF, and the guy's just sitting there, and then they go, Martin Scorsese is not doing a Q&A, which happens all the time, and then they just leave, and you're like, I was in the room with Scorsese.
This is exactly what I was trying to say. Yes, about the books. So TIFF is a good example, but no Q&A, nothing, but you just know they're in the room.
Like
I
went to
feel like it's even like a weirder reality where it'd be like someone who wrote a book versus somebody who can just write words down really fast, and people just go, "Whoa, look how fast this, the guy's can just write like a page really fast." There's all these crazy words, and he filled up a whole page in 30 seconds. Holy shit! Look at him go!
No, but those
This is
those songs are good that they're making.
Yeah, sure. And, I mean, that's another thing. No, I mean, there are some producers that are amazing. Sorry, DJs that are amazing producers, like Avicii. He's very talented.
Who was
musician.
the guy that got into his girlfriend's bum at Burning Man?
Oh, Flume.
Like, is Flume someone you consider talented?
Oh, by the way, no, but here's the thing. Some of these producers are incredible songwriters, incredible producers. Like Chris Martin's like Avicii's a fucking genius. I think Flume's music is very cool. I think these guys are on the cutting edge of production, and I really do enjoy the music. But the idea, like, I think it's just like an inside joke among people on the quote unquote DJ thing, where like they're kind of like, can you fucking believe
Like we're getting
this?
away with something?
Oh my god! They all go like, guys, like, I just show up. I don't have to like lift a fucking finger. It's like, no, I get all the money. I get way more money. And I literally just show up with a fucking USB thumbnail.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
But you still have to travel to places. It's exhausting still.
Don't stop it.
What a
We're on
nightmare.
a fucking private jet. If you live in LA and you go to Vegas to like DJ a pool party, but
here's a question,
I
though.
think that's what it is. I think that's what it comes down to is that I think a lot of these guys in the game go, I can't believe it.
So here's my question then back to you. You're making it sound very simplistic. If it was this easy, why wouldn't everyone do it? It's an amazing life.
I think a lot of people are doing it. That's why there's
But
no
are they
bands anymore.
succeeding
Well,
at
the
that
hard
level?
part is to become popular because to get people to even want to come to where you're at, you need the hits.
Of course. Oh no.
So there's the trick. What I'm saying is, it's like you're describing it almost like I know there's DJs working every night all over the city who are making a few $100, but the level you're talking about, what's the magic trick? Why isn't everyone just Flume or Aoki or one of these guys?
Well, number one, I'd say way more people are doing it now because it's actually way easier. There's the amount of bands that are starting now today versus 15 years ago when DJing wasn't an option. There's no bands anymore.
So if you're a primary songwriter, you're going to go into digital music and just create in your basement and then tour.
yeah,
it.
and be a DJ, and you can also like make a bigger name for yourself as a DJ or a producer now than you could before. Like
Sure.
like producers are now like Benny Blanco, who used to be one of the producers behind the scenes making pop jams. He's now the featured artist. It's like, the Calvin Harrises of the world. So it's like people are onto it and go, oh, this is actually pretty sweet. And I'm sure like within the DJ world, there's like a hierarchy. And again, it's like most of the people at the top make most of the money, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just funny that like the thing, it's like that the people are snickering at or that are like keeping this like dirty little secret and like just continues to persist that nobody seems to have a problem with it. And then you go see something like Cirque du Soleil where you're like, oh my God. Like this is also
The amount of thought and effort.
live entertainment, and this literally is a million times the amount of work
and money to produce
Yeah,
a show
and-
like
and
that.
money to produce.
Have you seen a Cirque, Shaney?
I was going to see one in Vegas, but then we just liked the stand-up comedy so much. Like we went to see Harlan Williams. And
Yeah, Canadian.
Yeah, he was amazing. Like it was one of the best stand-up shows I'd ever seen in my life. And
On this most recent trip?
yeah,
Wow.
it was so good. I'm like very, very into Harlan Williams now, and each show he does is like 80% crowd work.
Oh, wow.
So you can literally see his Friday show, his 2 Saturday shows, a Sunday, and not stop being entertained.
That's cool.
Yeah, he won like improviser.
Who is he again?
He's in. Do you know Dumb and Dumber?
Yep.
He's Get the Hell Out of Here.
Okay, cool.
There.
I've heard it.
There's something about Mary. He was the killer. In the
Oh,
car.
sure,
Well, you knew who he was after my imitation, didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
The cop.
Yeah.
I guess that was for other people.
Yeah, just the listeners if they're not already running to their laptops.
But he's the
to
cop
pop.
in Dumb and Dumber, which everyone knows Dumb and Dumber.
Have you seen a Cirque show, Erica? You've been pretty quiet
No,
over there.
never.
Never?
But I've seen the Blue Man Group, and I love them.
What do they do? What do they do?
They like drum with
Yeah,
like
there's-
paint and shit. I don't know. It's kind of like
Sounds disgusting.
I knew you were on that.
I don't know. I like
Sorry.
them.
Yeah, is that us wrapped on Cirque?
That's a good one. We're done with Cirque.
We appreciate Cirque.
Just-
It's
okay, but
beautiful.
I
I'm
guess
not into Cirque at all, by the way.
But you love DJs.
I'm way more into DJing than I am Cirque. I am.
Why aren't you into Cirque?
I just don't care about that stuff. I'm not saying it's not impressive.
Have you ever seen it?
I watched the documentary that you're talking about.
Yeah,
when
I
they're
just
trying
say
out. and-
as a like in-person experience, it's pretty captivating, and it's something I don't crave. I'm like I can't wait to see a guy on a trapeze or something. But then when you go, you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty fucking cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, for our listeners, if you have a good argument for why I should respect DJs more, please send them.
Okay, the one thing I will say, and you kind of alluded to it, is I think the one thing EDM has that a lot of other genres of music don't have
Is that you don't have to pay attention to what's going on the stage.
well, the party / like drug culture associated with it. Like nobody else at Lollapalooza probably had like the amount of people dropping acid to go see a set.
Yeah.
As the DJs did. And I think that like attracts a certain, like all my friends who I know who go to these raves things. Yeah. Like they go to do a copious amount of drugs and get really fucked up.
Well,
and, like,
then
not
again,
remember.
okay, let's call it a drug experience then. Let's not call it like
A
live
live
music.
entertainment
Yeah.
experience.
But I feel like a lot of people would be offended by that who don't
A lot
do
of people
drugs,
would
who
be.
go to the shows.
And I'm sure there's
But
there
how
is
many of
lots
those
people.
people actually exist?
I think
I don't
think
know.
it probably
Steve
is.
Aoki seemed to say a lot exist. And he's completely clean person himself.
Yeah. And by the way, our friend Lights is literally on tour with Deadmau5, and I know just from knowing what Manager Ash is working on, they've built this cube, and it's like this very like thoughtful exercise, and Deadmau5 is a fucking genius apparently, and it's very creative. And so like I'm interested in that, but then I sort of check out when it's just a USB stick.
I think the experience of it is just very unique to EDM.
Yeah. You're paying for the work they did beforehand, not what they're doing on stage.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
how
sure.
many people
Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
at your Lollapalooza set showed up on acid and like
Probably
super
not.
drunk out of their mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it attracts. I think EDM is big amongst like younger people too, and I think that's why.
For sure.
drug
Well,
culture.
it kind of comes back to this like, can I go to an event like a live performance and not pay attention really at all to what's going on
That's
stage?
the question.
Like,
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's-
and if it's like you don't need to pay attention to it, then I'm like, then what is it? Like it's a vibe.
It's a party.
It's a party, but it's not a show or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Next subject.
All right. So this was a huge story in the news. In fact, in our last episode of the podcast, Unzi had gone to the bathroom while we were recording. And while he was in the bathroom, because we were recording at 299, they have TVs and radios playing in all the bathrooms. So CP24 was all over this story. It had literally just broke on Wednesday evening, I guess. And so he came back and he's like, you guys can hear this on the pod. He's like, did you guys hear about this, like, Trudeau? He's in trouble because he's in blackface or something. I'm like, when? What? He's like, I don't know. I just heard it like over the thing. So it literally happened while we were recording on Wednesday night. Since then, it has become a major international scandal. It was front page of CNN, like literally a larger story when you look at CNN.com than the whistleblower that Trump is trying, or the Trump administration might be trying to keep quiet. So it was a very, very big national story. But if you don't know, and I don't know how you wouldn't, Justin Trudeau, they uncovered photos from 2001. I believe he was 29 years old. He was a drama teacher at the time. And he's at some party, some dress-up party, Halloween party. I'm not sure what it was. And he's in full like brown face. He looks like some sort of, it was like called like an Arabian Nights party or something, or he went as an Arabian prince. This seems to be a problem with him historically. He seems to have, like, every time there was like a fucking Halloween party or something where he could dress up, he got out the makeup kit. This was his thing. So obviously, we know in 2019 all of the sort of problematic and sort of offensive things that come along with somebody going in blackface or brownface to any sort of event or dressing up that way. So yeah, so he had to do this huge apology for the press. It was carried live again, like I said, on CNN, all over in the States and everywhere. I mean, this story is interesting for a few reasons, because these photos have sort of come to light a month before. If you're in the States, you're listening to this, we're having a big election in a month, and there's basically, the left and the right. The left is Justin Trudeau. The right is this candidate named Andrew Scheer, and right now they're polling almost like neck and neck. And so something like this coming out feels strategic, but it also doesn't, mitigate the fact that the guy did this. What are our thoughts on Justin sort of feeling it's okay to do this, and then I guess having this come back to hurt him now publicly?
Well, I think he didn't think it was a racist thing when he did it at all. Like, I don't think he was doing this based in racism. Like, I wouldn't say he's a racist because he did this.
Yeah, I mean, well, a lot of people are talking about that on Twitter, how he's like, he was 29, it was 2001, he should have known better. And that's I don't know.
But, well, why does the yearbook publish it then? Like, everyone on that yearbook committee is like, this is fine. And he's literally posing with Indian people or people of the culture he's supposedly trashing.
Yeah, there's so many parts of this which I find fascinating. It's also interesting because we keep on coming back to this kind of story on this podcast about, like, Shane Gillis was last week, like something somebody did in their past. And it's interesting to talk about it because each situation is different, right? And it's like...
Well, the other one was hate speech. This is like a guy trying to do something. He's like, I'm trying
But it's all generally put in the same category was my point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just like how it becomes a theme on our podcast. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, you can make a mistake out of ignorance that people are going to, like, that is racist, but it doesn't mean you yourself are racist. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's a tricky one because it's like literally like one of Lauren's friends like dressed up as a Mexican for Halloween in 2012 or something. You're like in college, so it's like this stuff happens, and you wonder. And I feel like everybody probably has something. I was even thinking about myself. In probably 2009, and it's on the internet and it's on my Facebook, and I haven't scrubbed it. Maybe I should. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. But I dressed up as a babushka, which was an Eastern European grandmother. I do have some Eastern European history, so maybe that allows me to do it. But I thought it was just like a funny, like just reminded me of like people out on my street. And it was a last minute Halloween costume, but I was like, I did that, and that could be offensive to. Of
course, your intent does matter. Like the other day, I was.
But I didn't mean to be.
I know, that's what I mean. Your intent wasn't to be offensive, and you're just making a ignorant mistake.
Yeah.
So when the other podcast, like 4 podcasts ago, I said natives, and you guys corrected me instantly, saying it should be indigenous people. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, the thing which is interesting about this story is I wonder how many people are truly hurt and offended by it. That's what I would like to know, because obviously both, like, all the parties that aren't liberal are trying to make it into a big thing, and like this is outrageous, and I can't believe he did it. And I saw I was listening to CBC, and they interviewed a bunch of people on the street, and you could tell by their accents that they came from various ethnicities. And it was interesting. It was like, I don't think it's a problem. Or some people were like, no, actually that's not good at all. So I would be interested to know how this thing polls. I haven't checked the polling numbers about how many people are actually hurt by it, and how that might swing votes.
Yeah, I think these things, there's nuance to every conversation. There's sort of a fascinating overarching thing happening here where I feel like them trying to do a bit of a gotcha. Like, I think a thing that really bothers the people on the right, or some of his detractors, is that he's very virtuous in sort of the way that, so like some people, he's kind of like a Rorschach test. It's like, if you can look at Justin Trudeau and his policies, and you can go, he's very progressive when it comes to things like immigration, inclusiveness, and all these things. And I think sometimes people on the right are like, stop talking down to us and trying to like act like you're better than, or you're holier than thou. So then when a photo comes out like this, they get to kind of do a victory lap, and they're like, oh, look at like the super progressive, like left leaning.
He's no different.
He's no different.
Yeah.
He's just as flawed. What is kind of interesting is I feel like the people that are trying to exploit this actually don't care that he is in blackface, like in good faith.
Yeah.
Because I think that like if one of their candidates on the right had a photo from 20 years ago that looked like that, they'd be like, yeah, he didn't know any better. But I think they're enjoying sort of the hypocrisy of Justin presenting one way and then being ignorant in another. So that's one thing that's kind of fascinating to me. The other thing is, it's like, I think another thing's happening where we're looking at this photo from 2001 with like this sort of like our 2019 brains and sort of like this woke sort of like understanding of the nuances of why that is so, that could be offensive or is problematic. And for people to be like, he should know better, it was 2001. It's like, really? Like, I don't know.
If that's the most honest take.
Like, we have such an institutional collective knowledge now about these issues that like we can all kind of speak on it at a dinner party. But could you imagine in 2001, like there'll be a couple people that'll be like, that's probably not cool, bro. But the majority of people sitting down at that party wouldn't think twice about that because we didn't discuss it in those terms then. It took time and progress and us going, why is this offensive? And speaking to people from those cultures and them saying, well, this is why this is problematic. You get to spend, one day sort of like picking the fun stuff out of being in my culture, but then you get to go back to being a very white, rich, good-looking dude that basically has had a very charmed life. So it's like, I hope you enjoyed vacationing in my skin for a party. You know what I mean? It's like, but nobody, I don't know who thought that way. And maybe people of ethnic backgrounds would say, well, we always felt that way, and maybe I'm ignorant. But I would say that as far as my circle of friends, nobody was talking that in depth about the nuance of that in 2001.
Well, it's funny because the whole theme of the party was Arabian Nights. So had he not even been in brownface, just simply dressing and maybe wearing a turban or whatever was supposed to be the normal protocol, would have gotten him in hot water. But he's such an enthusiastic person. I feel like he was just like, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to hire a makeup artist and it's going to be great. And hey, there's 2 Indian guys. Want a photo with me? And like, he thought it was going to be loved. And those guys seemed to be okay with it in the photo.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like the way, it's not up to us, especially like 3 white guys, to say like how somebody ought to feel now. It's like if any person of color that sees that thing and is like actually like triggered and hurt, and so like that's up to whoever feels like they're a victim of just seeing that image, the leader of our country wearing brown face.
Yeah.
But I do think about, I know people are disappointed in Trudeau's policies, but the tone that he has set as the prime minister, which is one that's very inclusive, like he really has gone out of his way to like talk about Canada as a mosaic and to like welcome refugees, to walk in pride. Like I think we can say in good faith that he's been like a great example of somebody who says like Canada is for everybody. Whether or not on a policy level they've achieved everything they set out to do, that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, he's represented inclusion.
Yeah, he's represented
his track record.
Yeah,
on that.
and I do think there needs to be some acknowledgement of it in that like his actions, like since he's become prime minister, have been, I think, pretty ideal. And I think that counts. I think that should count for something. And I guess the question I have, and I struggle with all the time, is what is the line between holding somebody accountable versus forgiving somebody? It's like like when does somebody need to be brought to justice and to be called out or to be made feel guilty or for a just cause versus like we just like forgiveness, like we're all sinners, and at some point like we should be able to forgive him for something he did in the past that was bad. And I don't know what the line is, and maybe it's not up for any of us as privileged people to judge, but I just think it's a question that a lot of the critics haven't quite reckoned with, like because we all understand the issues with him doing it, but it's like, how do we move forward by it?
Well, I think it all starts with intent. Like no one's arguing whether what he did was offensive.
No. But let's say even he intended to be racist. Okay. Let's say he went to the party and was like mocking stuff, and this happened in 2001, and he thought it was funny, and it was just a crass, terrible joke. Mm-hmm. And then he carries on. He becomes prime minister, and he acts as he's acted for the last 8 years or however long he's been in power. That's an interesting thought experiment to me, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Absolutely.
like okay, somebody made some poor fucking jokes back then. They should be called out. They should be held accountable. At what point do we also acknowledge, they've also done some amazing stuff. Like they've really flown the flag of the pride flag and all the good things.
You're talking about like actions, not words.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like if their actions have proven that they are not only sort of repentant for what they've done, but ultimately have like helped lift up maybe something that they found funny or like if they, like you said, people can change, but people say they change all the time. So if there's this sort of empirical record of people, like it's like, well, this is how this person has changed, then I think you need to consider all that when sort of making a decision on someone's character.
For sure. And by the way, I don't care particularly about Trudeau. Like I think whatever, I think he's fine.
Well, this is what I wonder sometimes if you're someone on the right, and I don't know how many listeners we have like that, but I saw a lot of people on my Facebook, because I have the whole spectrum of people on my Facebook. Sort of, they did a lot of sort of like whataboutism and sort of a little bit of the false equivalency thing, where like, well, if somebody on the right had a photo in blackface from 10 years ago, everybody on the left would have piled on, and that person would have been pushed out of office or forced to resign. So it's like, I feel like there's a bit of frustration where it's like, we'll just sit here, like it's like, Trudeau could do anything. It's like, well, he had a huge scandal, where he tried to sort of sway the attorney general or whatever. And then it's like, now he's done this. And it's like everybody on the left who always will go after somebody on the other side are quick to come up with excuses for their people. Mm-hmm. My answer to that would be, well, track record matters. And it's like, if somebody seems xenophobic or they are very anti sort of immigrant, and then they have a photo that plays racist, I go, well, track record. It always comes back down to actions.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thought I had, which I was kind of curious to get you guys' takes on, is that, Scheer came out and said this guy's unfit to lead. Singh came out and said, he's a message for people of color that you're welcome in this country.
Shane had a very funny joke when Singh was doing his press conference. We just had it on with no sound on in the office, and Shane looked up and he goes, "I can't believe Justin decided to do his press conference like that."
That's funny. Is that I'd be just fascinated if one of these guys came out, one of his opponents came out and said, listen, obviously we know this was a bad look, terrible taste, bad joke. We know in 29 is not cool, but it also happened 20 years ago, and the standard I like to set is we're going to judge the person on his actions, especially in the last decade, and let's carry on. Like I would, again, it kind of reminded me a little bit of not totally the same, but when McCain was running against Obama, and someone yelled, "Obama's a terrorist" at like one of his town halls, and McCain said, "No, he's not a terrorist. He's American. He loves America.
He's a good family man.
He's a good family
Yeah, I
man.
remember that.
We have different ideas about how to make America better, but he's not a terrorist." It would just be interesting to me if a politician just came out and said, "Hey, let's not. This is not the point. The point is we need to like achieve a better Canada, and us talking about this is not actually helping anything." And some people might say that's soft, or you're missing an opportunity to get a W here. But I also think it would show. I think that's like the definition of leadership. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
of going that route. And I just wish more politicians, in the words of Michelle Obama, went high.
Right.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you think it's just like a foolish pushover move?
It's like EDM concert. Go high. Yeah, you like that one? Safe to laugh.
As a young person in the culture, as a voter, will you vote in this election?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How did you feel about seeing your prime minister yucking it up in blackface?
I pretty much agree with what you especially Max have said.
Why especially Max? What did he say?
Because he
so
did most
great?
of the talking.
Okay. Doesn't mean his point's any better than mine.
What was your point again?
What's your
I
point?
forgot. It was so,
Yeah, okay.
He's too short to even remember.
No, but about just like contextualizing the time and this and that. I do though think I thought Jagmeet Singh's response seemed very honest and I don't know. I really liked what he said.
It was a
And
positive statement.
Also, just to like acknowledge our bias. I don't know. Just you did. You kind of acknowledged the fact that we're all just.
And by the way, it's like in these kinds of situations, like I will like happily and I want to take the lead of somebody who is in a disenfranchised position, and just,
Right.
like, it's like you tell me like what do you think is fair here? It's
Exactly.
But when it becomes like just pure political opportunism, and I go, okay, do you actually like, is the person who says they're not Jagmeet Singh, but like some other person on Twitter, is the person who says they're like protecting the voiceless, are you actually doing that, or are you just is this political opportunism? And I'd like to hear from the voiceless on this one.
Me too.
Yeah.
I agree. And I just feel like the people who are disenfranchised by events like this, I just wish they got more media attention, spotlight, and more of they were able to control the narrative that existed in the media around these things, because then people like us would know better as to what the masses actually felt like.
Yeah.
Because it's not about any of us, to be quite honest with you. It's not about us.
I was going to ask, and this probably makes me seem very dumb, but is brownface even a thing? Like, I know blackface is a thing that's extremely offensive because it was white actors would take the roles away from black people and play black people instead of actually paying a black person to play a black role. And they would actually just be like full on, literally the color black with like shoe polish and stuff. But brownface, I don't know that historically to be a...
Trudeau made it a thing.
I just started hearing that term after the Trudeau thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's a movie, White Chicks, where they went whiteface, and that's probably, like, a shitty argument. But I'm just confused of, like, are brown people, like, that is supremely racist? Or does it not even matter the paint? It's more like if you were to wear a turban, that would be more saccharine to them.
I think it comes down to, like, they're a marginalized community. They're just a
Yeah.
smaller
White women.
representation
Absolutely,
in this
100%.
country, and be, like, the cultural appropriation thing. So you could take anything from, like Asian culture, any culture that's not your own. I
Right,
think
but I mean,
what's
is a movie
something-
like White Chicks, is that an offensive thing? Like, could you get away with a movie like that today?
Well, no, she's saying because wealthy white women aren't a marginalized
Yes.
culture.
But-
so it's two black
But
guys.
so you can appropriate a white person's culture,
That's a question.
and it doesn't matter as much.
I don't know. I mean,
And I guess the answer is it doesn't.
but a lot of
matter.
people would make that argument. Like, I guess it depends what it is specifically you would find offensive about somebody dressing up as your culture.
I also think it's related to this, or in addition to this, it's a class thing too, where it's like, okay, if you're like taking the piss out of like literally the most fortunate people on this planet, who cares? It's like, you're right. But if you're taking the piss out of like hillbillies from the Appalachia, that's maybe when it gets to not feel as good, because you like those are people in the like the lower class rung of society.
Like, if someone calls me cracker, I don't care.
Yeah, but you're in
The intent, I guess, would matter.
sure, but you're in a position to like not really care about it, because it's like,
and the
who cares?
history of like calling someone a cracker is very different than like calling someone the N-word.
Oh,
Like
I know.
this,
That's what
right? And
that's
I
what
think
I'm
that's,
saying.
like,
I'm just
where it comes.
yeah. I'm just thinking of
But I know
like
what you
racial
mean. I
slurs
know,
in the
yeah.
hierarchy.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
The last thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to this on a grander level is, people have been making the jokes about like everybody who went to, every guy who went to Queens or Dallas or
I saw
Kingston.
Gourmet Spud tweeted that.
What did he say?
I should find the tweet and read it exactly. So the Gourmet Spud tweet, he said, every single person that went to Western Queens or Dal from 1990 to 2010 has pictures of their friends in blackface. Not defending it. Go look at faculty yearbooks. A lot of skeletons out there.
Yeah, and there's also like funny GIF of like everybody like burning their high school yearbooks. There's like some clip from a movie of like some bonfire.
Like, this is what I'm trying to say too about the 2001 argument, or like the ignorance argument. And Shane mentioned this about intent. Is it's like kids didn't know they were being offensive when they were addressing like Michael Jordan or Shaq or Aladdin or whatever.
This is not to say that when
It's
they
right.
did it, they weren't hurting kids of in minority populations.
That's what I'm getting to. But
Yeah.
now, it's like now, I bet you nobody will fucking go out like that. Why? Because we learned. You like sort of, like progress is about sort of like educating yourself, learning. And it's like now, could you imagine going to a party like this weekend and seeing someone show up like that? They won't, because people now know.
Well, there wouldn't be an Arabian's night.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on this one is that I am maybe naive or overly optimistic, but I do like to think that there are certain people that truly are in politics for the right reason, that there are like noble leaders out there that really do care about the community, and they're not just in it for, fame. Because being a politician is, I think, a harder job. If you want to be a celebrity, like it is...
Become a DJ. It's much easier.
Yeah, become a DJ. It's way fucking easier. Yeah, it's a great one. So this whole thing kind of bums me out, because I wonder how many like really sort of like eager, keen 25-year-olds are out there who go, I think I could make a difference. I love working with people. I care about my community. I have values that I think are important. But you know what? Fuck it. I'm never going to politics, because I dressed up like a fucking idiot for Halloween in 2012, and I'm not going to fucking do it. And it's just a bummer to me that there's a lot of good people out there that are just going to walk away from that, and I think we do need leadership. I think people can be like, oh, politicians are crooks, and you can say that, but I think that's a stupid opinion. And to me, that's disappointing.
Like, imagine in 20 years, the like rainbow sleeves was considered homophobic if you weren't gay yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
You'd be in hot water.
Yeah.
I like to think of that sometimes. Like, I like to think, what is something that like is a generally an accepted practice today that in 10 years you're going to look back and be like, holy fuck, I can't believe
I'm sure
I did
there's.
that.
I'm sure
that was
we're
so
all doing
tone deaf
something
as
like
me.
right now that we're like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck. Which is fine, which is all about progress. But and this kind of goes back to my question of like forgiveness. Like, are we going to be able to develop a culture where forgiving people for past misdeeds like becomes like one of our best virtues? Do you know what I mean? Because right now it does not seem to be in the scale of like important virtues. Forgiveness is pretty fucking low right now, and I get that like we have a lot of catching up to do when it comes to like making things right, but I think I think the rules will be better. Like Nick is always saying in our Kells, like you got to like just do this extreme action to kind of take out all the trash, and there's going to be casualties. Yeah, and then once we normalize, we can like play within the rules and bend them a little easier. I hope so. I really hope so.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
What was the other topic?
Well, guys, we had a few things, but I think a big Rolling Stone feature on Taylor Swift came out. Was that today or yesterday?
No, it came out like a few days ago, like a week ago maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little bit behind the ball. But I ended up reading this feature that Taylor hasn't given an in-depth interview, I don't think, in 3 years, they were saying. Wow. So it was. Did you read the whole thing?
She's not coming on the pod?
I don't think she'll be coming on the pod, no. It was very revelatory in a lot of ways. I thought she... Like, I don't know, maybe I haven't read a lot of, like, long-form interviews with her. I've certainly never heard her on a podcast. But I found her answers in sort of self-awareness. Like, sometimes when I think about Taylor Swift, I think of her as sort of, like, flighty and self-indulgent. It's sort of just this idea that I have her. And I don't think about her a lot. But it's like, when I do, I go, oh, I think I kind of have that person sorted. This interview, albeit in print, I was like, she came off very self-aware, sort of like appropriately sort of like angry at some of the stuff that's happened to her, but then also very philosophical about some stuff. And she says she's never been in therapy in this interview, and but she felt like somebody that's really sort of thought a lot about these things and just answered like these questions in a very, very interesting way. There's a section with they talk about Kanye West and how that whole thing came out where she was pissed about that line in his song about like Taylor and I might have sex one day.
I made her famous.
I made that bitch famous is what he said. And then she got upset about the lyric, and then Kim Kardashian released a secretly taped phone call where Kanye and her are talking about it, and he says, I'm going to say I used to have sex with you. She's like, yeah, that's cool. Taylor talks about this, and she says, well, he never told me he was going to say I made that bitch famous. She's like, that line really did bother me. She's like, and she started getting the psychology of how Kanye West operates. And she basically was like, when Kanye did that thing at the VMAs where he's like, when he's invalidating me and he's telling me I don't deserve this award and all that stuff. She's like, my personality type is I just wanted so much for this like guy to like me because he sort of like he put me down in a way and he didn't respect me, and not respecting me, like it made me want to earn his respect so much that I decided to like, okay, I'll keep trying with this guy. I'll like sort of like do this. And she talked about how she's like, so he called me up when he was getting like the Vanguard Award at the MTV Movie Awards or Video Music Awards, and he said, hey Taylor, it would mean a lot to me, like really it would mean a lot to me if you presented it to me, if you were the person that presented me the Lifetime Achievement Award. And she also got a little dig where she's like, he called me, which I did not tape without his knowledge. She goes, and he basically said how much it would mean to me, and he would compliment my music, and we kind of got close, and I needed his validation. She goes, so I write this speech, I really think about it. She goes, I go up, and I present him the award after this big speech about his career, and then I go and I stand, he comes up, and the first thing he does is he starts going like, oh, yo, MTV got Taylor to present me with this award, like they made it happen. She's like, and I'm standing there with my arm around his wife. She's like, and I'm just like I'm done with this guy. Like
she's like, no, you called me and asked me to do it.
You called and asked, and
it
now
wasn't about MTV wanting ratings. It was like, yeah.
And the minute you got up on stage, it's like you acted like you were too cool. Like you weren't the one that wanted me to do this. Like it's almost like, well, I guess I'm associated with Taylor because they wanted you know what I mean? And so she really got into that. And then she goes, and he did the same thing to Drake. She goes, she used a great wording.
They blew up his life, basically.
Yeah, she was like, he gravely altered the trajectory of his family's life. And then she's like, he does this to people. She's like, so if that's what you're going to be, then I'm done with you. And she's really gone to that.
What's the Drake thing? What did he do to him?
The Pusha T thing.
Remember with the kid?
Yeah.
Kanye's involved in that?
Kanye produced the song.
Kanye produced Pusha T's album. Pusha T and Drake
Didn't know that.
a thing. So
Right.
Kanye clearly told Pusha T this information about Drake's sort of secret son. Then Pusha T did the diss track, but he would have only got the information from Kanye's
Gotcha.
or the story of it. Then she goes into the Scott Borchetta thing, and I'm actually going to look this quote up because I thought this was a pretty cool way to describe Scott Borchetta and Scooter Braun, and sort of we talked about this on a past pod, them buying the catalog and owning her future work. So she talked a lot about the relationship she had with Scott Borchetta and how she really thought that he thought of her as a daughter, but then she realized, that maybe it was just a business arrangement, et cetera, et cetera. But so Scott, I guess, had like when things got nasty, he'd accused her of not wanting to be a part of the Parkland March or play the Manchester Benefit Show. So this reporter for Rolling Stone asks, he accused you of declining the Parkland March and Manchester Benefit Show. Taylor says, unbelievable. Here's the thing. Everyone in my team knew if Scooter Braun brings us something, do not bring it to me. I guess Scooter was involved in both those things.
Yeah, because he's Ariana Grande's manager.
That's right. The fact that those two are in business together after the things he said about Scooter Braun, meaning Scott Borchetta, it's really hard to shock me. And this was utterly shocking. These are two rich, very powerful men using $300 million of other people's money to purchase like the most feminine body of work, and then they're standing in a wood panel bar doing a tacky photo shoot, raising a glass of scotch to themselves because they pulled one over on me and got this done so sneakily that I didn't even see it coming, and I couldn't say anything about it. So I'm like, that's pretty hard hitting. And I think that what I felt when I was reading this is I was like, I think a lot of people are going to relate to Taylor more than those two. Like she hasn't really spoke as in depth, like the Kanye thing, the stuff with Scott Borchetta and Scooter Braun. I just was like, I felt like she's felt very relatable for anybody that feels like they've sort of been fucked over or like have been in a weird relationship with somebody who's kind of like says one thing and then acts another way and all of that stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think when you hear those comments?
Oh yeah, I did like the interview. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. I've been a fan of hers for like 10 years. It's funny. I think my spidey senses go up a little bit there. And by the way, like I like have no dog in this race, but the way I think like the criticism of Taylor Swift is that like many celebrities is that she's kind of playing the angles game. She's playing like how am I being perceived? And
she acknowledges all that.
No.
Yeah.
She totally acknowledges that. And she even says, she's like, yeah, the minute a woman starts playing the angles, she's called a bitch. And I totally get that. And I get that 100% that there's a double standard for women and men when it comes to like people that are really driven and wanting to be the boss. Totally get that. The only thing she doesn't quite acknowledge is like, okay, you still probably had a chance to buy it. Like you don't acknowledge the process in which that sale happened. You just say that like you were made unaware and they pulled one over. Like, you know what I mean? And that's what Borchetta and Scooter Braun said. They were like, she had a chance to buy it. She just didn't buy it.
And she's trying to be relatable to like the masses by being like, these guys are worth $300 million. I'm like you guys, the fans. Like I'm like a poor little girl and the man is fucking me over. But it's just when you're in business, especially at that level, it's ruthless.
Yeah. Well, she said 300 million of other people's money.
That's the thing.
Whatever.
But they're not that liquid. That's what I liked about the dig.
Yeah,
that
was
you
a great
need to
dig.
bring in investors to buy something like that. Because Scooter probably doesn't have 300 million. You know what I mean?
So when people say that she's like when they accuse her being like a little like disingenuous or a little like strategic in a way that doesn't feel completely authentic. Not that anybody's completely authentic. It's like those kind of moments where you're like, okay, totally get it, but you're also playing a game just like everybody else is, and it doesn't feel as like real to me. And you know what I mean?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
it's an interesting take.
Yeah, it's and I wonder, it's like, okay, let's go through like the list of like famous like celebrity power players. It's like who does feel real to you, and who is just sort of like always on like PR mode and is always playing like the game of chess.
I just don't know how else she would talk about that.
Well, I mean, the thing I'd say that would make it feel a little more genuine to me is say that whole speech, but then also acknowledge the one piece of information that they put out, which was she had a chance to buy it.
Exactly.
She didn't want to buy it. So if she just said, like, she just doesn't address it. She just says she got hoodwinked.
Right.
When Scott Borchetta says, like, we told her lawyer, like a week before it was happening, her dad's on the board. She doesn't speak to that at all. And I'd just like her to speak to that. As opposed to just going, these two men fucked me over.
Interesting.
That's the exact way I feel too. Like she's just burying the thing that's not so nice. Even though she had a chance to buy it, she just wants to act like, although it's a ruthless industry, I'm not ruthless and they were ruthless. She should have just said that. Like I had the chance to buy it. I thought I had more time or this. I didn't know the window was closing. I'm not that astute of a business
I might not have
person.
the money. That might be what she's alluding to. They had to bring in other people to actually buy it. So she might not have been liquid enough to buy that.
Right. Or just have the wherewithal to know exactly how to do it in the right way.
Yeah, and I like everything she said. Like the thing was like, my team knows not to bring me anything from Scooter Braun. Like totally relate to that. There's probably people in Arkel's world who's like, no, does that guy's bring it? Fuck that. Don't want to even see it. It's like I can also totally relate to her going like, Scott Borchetta, this guy was my fucking dad. I thought he was his daughter, and he fucking fucked me over. Like fuck that guy. Like I relate to that. I like all of it. It was just like that's like the one chess piece where you're like, okay.
I just find her to be an annoying person in general. So.
Yeah, I lean, like I said, like my outlook on her was kind of that way. And to me, I thought the interview was like, yeah, it really spoke to a lot of that stuff because she also just talked a lot about perception and like being a people pleaser and then also wanting to control every aspect of her career. But she used to be like, oh, things are just happening to me. Oh, another good week. She's like, no, but I don't, like, I'm in a conference room 3 days a week strategizing how to do these things. And it's like, it felt like a conversation that was real. And this guy wrote a profile on her like 3 years ago too. So
it was like 7 years ago.
7 years. So she knows the interviewer. There was just like, I just thought there was a level of
I like that she called herself
openness.
a golden retriever. I
Yeah.
thought that was a good line. She's like, I just was there to please everybody, but obviously it's like you can only kind of be at the top for so long before people start to criticize you.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read as much as a very famous person who's going to be somewhat guarded can be fascinating in a profile piece, which I did not expect because I, like, to Shane's point, I was more like, well, we'll see how this goes. And like 2 answers in, I was like, okay. I'm like, this has a little more depth than a regular, like, I was feeling this way, so I wrote this song. Yeah, that whole thing. Thoughts? Big Taylor fan, Erica?
I agree with you, Shane.
Whoa.
What'd I say again?
No, she's always just kind of been like a little annoying to me. I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan, but I also like don't particularly hate her. I just don't know enough about her. I've never cared enough to.
Yeah,
I
we
still
talked about
haven't
this.
heard her
You only like
album.
Fearless.
Yeah, I just don't really care. I haven't read the piece, but
So I was assigned with half an hour to spare.
yeah,
before this
but
podcast.
I will. It sounds good.
Yeah, it's good.
Sounds like you changed your mind on her a little bit. Mike.
Yeah, I dug it. I just thought it was. I like when those things are revealing. I feel like I learned something about her in as much as she didn't say, as much as she did say. And I like when I learn something about somebody when it's like a big cover of Rolling Stone.
But
It's a long piece.
it's hard to like. It might seem authentic, but no matter what, just because it's her, I'm like, oh, this was reviewed 1,000,000 times. She probably was like, take that out, and her management team is probably like, you seem so authentic here. Keep this part. She's like, I don't know, and then you know what I mean.
That is a very interesting counter because her answers are so goddamn good.
Yeah.
It almost feels like someone went through the print and was like cleaned it up a bit. Or maybe she is that eloquent. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen any interviews with her, but yeah, maybe
Or
that
maybe
happened.
she had a relationship with this reporter already, and he agreed to maybe allow her to see it
Well,
before it was
access-
published.
Nothing's for free, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this guy got the access, so who knows if there was some, arrangement, final cut or final edit or whatever.
To me, the best part about observing Taylor Swift's career is she's been going at it for so long and she's been at the top for so long. It's like, what does she do? What is her next move? Because she's really accomplished everything. It's like, what is there to do now? It's like she's played football stadiums for like the last 5 years. It's really incredible. And so each time she puts out a record, she has to think about, okay, what is going to be the narrative that's going to make this feel fresh? What's it going to sound like? How am I going to give the people what they want while also not being stale, And that there's only a few artists out there that have been at the top for so long and the expectations are so fucking high. And I feel like she misstepped a little bit with Reputation because I think people liked her for bringing kind of joy and happiness to people's life, and Reputation had like real edge to it, and she like wasn't using social media. She wasn't doing like the fan engagement stuff that people came to love her for. But then with Lover, she's kind of gone back to that old school model, and I think it's working for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remain a fan.
Yeah. And just sort of fascinated by her. All right.
That's it for the topics.
No,
We got
it
a
was
Shane surprise.
Yeah.
Well, I had one. I was trying to work out the angle for this one, but then I saw a tweet by Max, and he was like, "The new halloumi salad. This place is awesome." So I had to run to Flock.
Oh, cool.
And then I was enjoying the salad, and I kind of got lost on the point of the topic. But it's kind of related to everything we were talking about just now with Taylor, and even probably even more so with the Trudeau thing. But
Hold on a second. Can we just recap what Shane just said? He was like, I got lost in a Max tweet about him endorsing a salad that had halloumi on it. And then,
Well, I love halloumi.
and then I ran there, and then I got lost in thought. But it kind of relates to Taylor Swift and Justin Trudeau's brown face. That's incredible. That is so good.
well, there's this ISIS video, and apparently.
Okay.
Well, there's this ISIS video, and I didn't know this, and this might even be racist to me not to know this, but ISIS is split into two factions.
Okay. I don't think that's racist. I think
Okay. I don't know anything. But apparently there's a blooper reel of a guy talking to camera, and he's fucking up like his terrorist threats. And there's a bird going in the background, and he's like, give me another take. But it's not cool for this guy to be doing that. He doesn't want this video to get out to the public. So the rival faction got the video, and they released it, and they're like, hey, this isn't the cool ISIS faction to be a part of.
Oh my God.
So I was just kind of trying to think of like
You should have saved this and made it a stand-up premise. You could literally do 5 minutes on them being like political parties warring.
Well, that's what I mean. I was like, the premise is so funny. I know there's something here, and it's all related to somebody capturing you when you don't want to be captured, and someone releasing it.
You know what? I'm wrong. This is
is amazing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think of like moments in our own lives where we've been filmed and something's been released and we didn't want to, and what's the recourse? How do you handle someone? Like we have a friend Felix who films us when maybe sometimes we don't want to. I know I filmed Mike when he didn't want to. And what is like what do you think the etiquette is there, I guess? When you're filming a friend do something stupid, do you always ask them, or is it like put it up online and take the heat later?
The expression
Better to ask for forgiveness? Yeah.
So you're asking what's
Well, I mean, no, yeah, that's interesting. Those are a couple different things because it's like it feels like some are done with the intent to harm the person that's been filmed. So it's like if you're Trudeau's rivals and they send these photos and they're part of like a conservative operative, or if you're part of the other faction of ISIS that didn't have the blooper reel guy, you're doing it to undermine his credibility or something like that.
Sometimes, like, let's say you're in your 20s and we're having a conga line and we're all hammered and we're all just laughing.
Yeah.
That seems fine, right? And to put that online would be fine. But let's say you're a dad and you don't want to seem like you're always just out there drinking and partying. You might be like, hey, like, ask me about the conga line thing because it's going to make it seem like I'm some deadbeat out partying too much. You know what I mean? So, like, the time in your life kind of matters, and sometimes people don't realize that you're at a different point in your life than someone else. So I find being a dad, I'm more embarrassed if a video of me being silly is out there.
Yeah.
So I always wonder, like, even me, if I see someone filming me, I also don't want to seem like I'm a prude or like, can you blur my face on that?
Yeah, I think it kind of just comes down to like the gut test for the person being filmed. So it's kind of as simple as that. And you can't really argue with it, and especially if you're talking about friends. There's like, if it just doesn't feel, if you're like, I know this is stupid, but in my gut, I just don't like it for whatever reason. Can you take it down? That's it.
But it's weirder if someone's filming you and you kind of know them. They're on like the periphery of your friend group. But you know everyone you know knows that person, and there's a good chance they'll post it. Like,
are you trying to get at something?
No, I was just.
Yeah, you're being oddly specific.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the Trudeau thing got released. The thing, presumably, like, maybe a student he taught, released that for massive cash, right?
Somebody probably sent that photo to, or maybe he had a conservative student that, they've been sitting on that yearbook photo probably for a while.
Oh my God, yeah. I wonder how long that's been there. I'm trying to find something here.
Somebody brought up an interesting point I was talking to, that they said, because it almost feels like a month out of the election, it's too soon to bring it up because it won't really necessarily affect votes, because the story will blow over in theory. But they said they did it so that when they start the debates and Trudeau tries to start hitting the Conservatives on their xenophobia, their sort of anti-immigration stance, they can basically then counter with, like, you actually can't speak to anything when it comes to race. Like, they feel like it's a blocker that delegitimizes his stance.
Which is ludicrous, but yeah.
Good work. Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, if I felt like someone was putting out something like damaging on purpose to embarrass, like, that's the thing. You just don't want to, like, because one thing is you're like kind of putting something out to hurt like an opponent. When you're talking about friends shooting friends, like for an Insta story or like a Snapchat or something, like my thing is, it's like, I just don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want anyone to feel embarrassed, and people have different tolerances for embarrassment. Yeah. So if it's like, if you're at a house party and you're drunk and it's like, it's like pushing 2 a.m. and you're kind of passed out in a chair and everybody's kind of partying around you, and it's like somebody's like going to film me. It's like, well, it's like, I'm around friends. I would like to think I'm not going to wake up the next day and my wife's going to be like, why did you pass out in the chair? It's like, well, if I knew why I did it, I wouldn't have done it. It's like, it's like, I would think my good friends wouldn't shoot that. And, that takes conversations, because some people don't give a shit. Like somebody, like, one of our friends might get hammered, pass out, and someone put a blanket on them and a sombrero, and then like shoot it and be like, night ended early for so-and-so. And that person would be like, that's hilarious. You know what I mean? But
then people think you're doing appropriation.
It's a sombrero. Yeah. I should have said what kind of hat could they be wearing?
Yeah, I think you just have to be really aware of like who you're filming, and if you're their friend, you'd know what you can do and what you can't do. So like Mandrash, who's very easygoing generally, she hates being filmed sleeping on a plane. I did that once, and she says, like, Max, I don't care about anything. Never do that again.
Sure.
And I said, oh, okay, yep, fair enough.
I'm the same way on plane sleep. Yeah. But for you, it's got to be a different standard, too, because your stuff, anything that you're involved with is catchier and potentially a news story.
Yeah, well, I was trying to think. I feel like you guys did something. Maybe it was on the Mike and Much account or something. There was some photo of me. I can't even recall. It was in the last couple months where I remember it towed the line.
Oh, where you had that MAGA hat on.
No,
no,
stop it.
I'm joking.
That's not true, by the way. Mike on Much can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Mike on Much. You can subscribe to the show on any platform that has podcasts. Spotify, do it.